Warning, censorship. Warning, censorship.
Committed assault! You invite. This is assault!
David Menzies for Rebel News. Somewhere in a nondescript building in the deep, dark bowels of North York, Ontario. But I'm here because I finally tracked down Kelly Anne Wolfe. Now, Kelly Anne has been the subject of some really nasty physicality thanks to the Toronto police. Let's just dial back the clock to last Saturday and the Saturday before that, and you can see the lovely Kelly Anne Wolfe being taken down quite roughly by the boys in blue.
Committed assault! You invite. This is assault!
So there you go, Kelly Anne. I thought I was in a dominion in the Commonwealth that is a democracy in which freedom of expression, freedom of assembly, freedom of the press is cherished. But what we've seen at Yonge-Dundas Square in the last few weeks, I think has been egregious. It looks less Yonge-Dundas Square, looks more Tiananmen Square circa 1989. First of all, before we get into that, how you feeling?
I'm tired.
Okay.
I'm tired. I'm healing. So after 29 hours of straight isolation, after being roughed up by the Toronto police, I'm feeling probably as good as I can, considering.
Kelly Anne, why did things change? I've been covering the so-called Yahoo Nation since I believe it was late April of last year. And you assembled at Queen's Park and then eventually moved to Yonge-Dundas Square, and it was without incident. And then a few weeks ago, things turned ugly real fast. Huge police presence, literally cordoning off the square with a human wall, tearing down speakers, grabbing you physically, throwing you in a paddy wagon. What I'm trying to get at is, who's pulling the strings here, do you think?
Well, I got information that my last arrest, at least anyways, came directly from the order of John Tory, the mayor of Toronto. So I think it's time that if there are any police out there who have any respect for the law and any respect for and comprehension, rather, for the oaths that they swore to protect the public, to protect the people, that they need to start standing up.
You know, it was quite something to see because I saw with my own eyes a man being arrested for standing by himself on a street corner, a man being arrested for having a Dr. Teresa Tam sign, a man being arrested for waving the Canadian flag, a woman being given a Highway Traffic Act violation because she had anti-lockdown messages painted on her minivan. I mean, it was, I guess what I'm getting at was a degree of pettiness you would seldom see. And yet we contrast that with what happened last summer. Several times, Black Lives Matter demonstrations, far larger, I might add, in which the police not only turned a blind eye, but actually took part in the protest. They bent the knee, including the then chief of police of Toronto. Why the double standard?
Oh, there's an extreme double standard because these other groups are funded by the government, by this political, corrupt, and egregious agenda. Like, if you look at Bill Blair just released a brand new list of newly named terrorist organizations. Why wasn't Antifa on that list? They're not anti-fascist. If they were, they'd be out marching with our people, and they're not. So what is their purpose? They're anti-free speech is what they are. That's why they assault our groups. That's why they attack our groups. These people are 100% political trolls of the government, of a corrupt government. And it's time for us, all of us, as Canadians across this entire country, to stand up and say no more.
Moving on, Kelly Anne, we've seen what's happened in Toronto. Last Saturday, the police tempered down a little. I think they received such a public relations black eye. They had no choice but to kind of rein in their behavior, even though they still arrested you, I might add. The thing is, on Valentine's Day, week Sunday, we have a planned protest in Ottawa. And how do you think that's going to go down? Because I saw something that you put out there on social media that you're not getting cooperation from the police in Ottawa in terms of electrical access for your loudspeakers and whatnot. I can only imagine if Mayor Tory's Toronto police isn't a fan of you and the anti-lockdown types. I can only imagine what the Ottawa police and the various other police forces in Ottawa think of you because of how Justin Trudeau would perceive people like yourselves. Is there actually going to be a protest, or are we going to see a big clampdown in Ottawa on Valentine's Day?
Well, one of my conditions is that I cannot promote any social gatherings, rallies, or protests of 4 or more people. But I'm not promoting. I'm going to make that very clear. I'm answering your question, David. And your question is, there going to be a protest in Ottawa? Yes, there is.
In terms of what you were charged with, in terms of what your conditions are for your release, can you go into any of that?
Yes, I can. Actually, and I can supply you with the actual, I'll email you copies of my papers, and you're more than welcome to post them publicly, as to me, transparency is very important. So with my first arrest, they charged me with being a common nuisance.
That's Chris Guy territory.
Oh, of course it is. I love Chris Guy's my brother, and I love him. And he's actually between him and Danny DeSantis. Okay. I've got such a strong army in my corner. They called lawyers immediately. So for my first arrest, my conditions are that I'm not allowed within 10 meters of Dundas Square. I'm not allowed to possess.
By the way, how do you, I've always wondered about this. Did you bring like a tape measure or something to make sure you're in compliance?
I'm pretty sure across the street is fair enough, as I was across the street and I was not arrested. So I can't hold your microphone. I can't hold it, but you can hold it and I can speak into it. So I can't possess any equipment that gives off amplified sound. Oh. And I'm not allowed to post any advertising, endorsements, or encouragement to any social gatherings of 4 or more people on social media. Yeah.
And for the territory that would encompass, is that in the city of Toronto? So this wouldn't apply for Ottawa on Valentine's Day?
Specified. But okay. What I will say is that these charges are in fact an infringement upon my rights of expression under the Constitution and the Charter, as I was clearly on video with over 1 million hits on TikTok protesting against the lockdown. That's what I was doing. And so apparently this government is trying to say that protesting is now a crime in Canada. It's a common nuisance. I can't wait to see them try to prove in court that I'm a threat to the health of the public. That's going to be interesting, because I'm going to force them to prove that this pandemic even exists.
Indeed. Well, Kelly Anne, thank you again for your time. Really appreciate it. I hope your injuries heal. You didn't deserve that, so I hope you get better. And, folks, I guess looking ahead to Sunday, February 14th, Valentine's Day, the question begs, what's going to happen on Parliament Hill? Is there going to be a peaceful protest? Well, certainly the protesters of this movement, unlike some other movements that the police turn a blind eye to, they've always been peaceful. That's not been the problem. The breach of peace has been involving members of law enforcement. So, like I said, the question is, will this peaceful protest be allowed to happen on Parliament Hill, or will law enforcement there turn Parliament Hill into another Yonge-Dundas Square? Geez, let's hope not, but we'll be there to chronicle whatever happens. For Rebel News, I'm David the Menzoid Menzies. Hey folks, have you been issued a fine for doing such egregious things as, exercising your freedom of speech? Well, if so, please go to fightthefines.com. That's fightthefines.com. Tell us your story. If it has merit, we will go to bat for you using a criminal lawyer and crowdfunding your legal fees.